Hey guys, it's Song from iFrame Games, and if you've been keeping up with my YouTube shorts, you know I've been playing a lot of Modern Warfare 2 recently. However, I think the game has some problems, and honestly, this is a great situation where we can dissect the problems and learn how to make a better design game in the process. When you design a game, there's always the risk of angering your audience. This is sometimes actually caused by the players themselves because they're trying to play the game in a way that's directly discouraged and punished. However, there is the other case where the game itself can be the source of the anger. Now, this is obviously something you really want to avoid to keep your players happy. Now, the problem is that in Modern Warfare 2, the player is not informed on the mistakes that they're making. Now, this wouldn't be a big issue if the game didn't have such a quick time to kill. With the quick time to kill, that means the player is punished harder for the mistakes that they make. But with the lack of information, that means the player doesn't know why they died, nor do they know what they can improve on. You see, Modern Warfare 2 doesn't explain any of its system mechanics to the player. Information about how weapons and the differences between weapon attachments is never actually explained in the game. Nor does the game try to explain that some weapons have multipliers on certain body parts while others don't, meaning that the game feels very inconsistent in its game rules. Information on how a player can interact with the game and why they might end up in a fail state has to be as clear as possible in order to avoid angering the player. If a player does not know why they entered a fail state, the player will get mad for the same reasons as if you played a game with inconsistent game rules. The player feels like the game is cheating them out of a win. And this doesn't help in the fact that Modern Warfare 2 is a very buggy mess right now. A lot of inconsistencies happen all over the game. There are a lot of times where bullets that look like they should never hit, while other times there are bullets that should hit that don't hit. There are also other times where sound effects are louder than they should be, or sound isn't as loud as it should be. All of this kind of combines into a situation where the player never feels like what they're doing actually matters, because at the end of the day, the game is what decides what the player will do. And it's never a good feeling when the player feels like they have no control in the input of their own experience. Inconsistent gameplay is one of the worst things to have, especially in a punishing game. You see, when your game is hard and punishing, but the game is consistent, that means the players can start to learn and figure out game rules and try to avoid fail states as they play. That is good game design. But when the game rules change randomly, right, there's no given reason or rhyme into why things are changing, then the player feels like the game is cheating them out of a win. This is probably why there are so many accusations of people cheating in Modern Warfare 2, even though most of the time players really aren't cheating. However, it makes the other player really feel like something is going on when some players are doing better than them, and they don't really know why. And this really compounds with information not being given, because if you're not giving the player the rules on how the game works, that means the player has to infer those rules by themselves. But then if those rules can randomly change without any reason, then the player really doesn't understand how they're supposed to go about your game. Now, the game has inconsistent gameplay as well as not clear game rules, but the thing that really just ties it all together is that the game spawns are still broken from Modern Warfare 2019. Spawns in a first-person shooter are one of the things that has to be as perfect as possible. And the reason this is because spawns are one of the few things that players cannot influence on their own. The player spawns where the game determines them to spawn, and if they die, that's on the game itself. And this really gets to the center of what you really want to avoid in a game, which is to take away player autonomy. This is the same reason why new tubes in the original Modern Warfare 2 was so annoying. Same thing with quickscopings, shotguns, grenades across the map. These are all angering situations because the player has no way that they can change it. The player can't aim better, they can't move out of the way, they can't dodge. The situation is completely dependent on factors outside the player's control. So this is a very, very sensitive thing. You don't want to do this just randomly. You want to make sure that you're very, very deliberate if you're going to take away control from your player. Now, if you were a game developer who was working on the situations and, you're trying to fix the problems that have been stated here, what are some of the things that you can do? Well, for the lack of information, one of the things you can do is have a graph on the kill cam, right? It shows the player, this is where you got shot, this is how much damage was done to you, and you can show that there are different modifiers from the gun that they were killed by. Again, this gives them the information for them to know, hey, this is why you died. You can do the same thing for the gun range as well. Show players that these guns have damage modifiers while others don't. Now, the other issue of inconsistency is very difficult, right? Because as it stands right now, it's very hard to tell if these inconsistencies are deliberate or if they're bugs. If they are bugs, then these need to be fixed as soon as possible. These bugs ruin the experience that Infinity Ward is trying to go for. Now, I'll make a separate video on the direction that Modern Warfare 2 is going towards and why I think it's a very bad game designed direction. I think the intention that the game developers are putting out and how the game is set up is very much clashing with each other. It's conflicting visions on how the game should work. And I'll make a video on that because I do think there's a lot of interesting concepts that we can grab from that.